Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cook Podcast, episode number 17. Today we have Kyra Lopez, a salon owner, educator, wife, and mother. We talked about leadership, failure in business, and purpose. Hope you enjoy. You grew up right here in Tri-Cities. You went to Pasco High?
Yeah, I went to Pasco High. So I grew up here in Tri Cities. I went to Pasco High all my life. I went to all of Pasco School District. Uh, I did live like outside of Pasco for a little bit, and I even had to stay in like Spokane for a little bit. But after I bought my first house, I made sure it was in Pasco, just because I like the community here. It's very like supportive of Hispanic community, and I really love that about being in Pasco. And then especially because I own a business, I'm also Hispanic, so working with my type of clientele, with my type of hair, it's a little bit different. So I wanted to make sure when I opened up my salon, it was in my community to help girls like me or anybody that has my hair.
For
I wanted
sure.
to make sure it was in my community,
Yeah.
and then help stylists in my community too.
Did you really like your upbringing here in Pasco?
I
Like
did.
as a younger
Yes, I
kid
did.
too?
I grew up in a neighborhood where it was very diverse. I grew up with a lot of like Hispanics, so a lot of Mexicans, a big Asian population too, and even a Ukrainian population in my neighborhood.
Nice.
And so I grew up with so many different types of or different cultures around me. So I really like enjoyed meeting different people in my community, and that's kind of why I like Pasco as well. It's just so diverse. And now that I have kids, I want my kids to experience the same thing I'm experiencing,
Nice.
or I experienced as a child, and just to kind of be very like open-minded to different cultures too. So that's why I love Pasco a lot.
When you were younger, did you think like, oh, I'm gonna start a family here and I'm gonna make a career here in Pasco or Tri Cities?
No, I didn't even think I was going to be a hairstylist, honestly. The thing I did know I wanted to do is I really wanted to, I didn't even think I was going to have kids either or be married. I really wanted to focus my time on helping people. So that meant like, if I had to go to school to be like a psychologist or anything to help children, that was my goal. I'm come from a really big family, and I had a very troubled sister, and I just remember like, oh gosh, I wish I could help her, and I wish I could help other girls just like her. So that was actually the thing I really wanted to do, which is really funny because in the hair industry, when someone sits in your chair, that's their safe space, and that's where they kind of like let everything out. So when you're a hairstylist, sometimes it's not about us, it's about them. So when they sit in your chair, you're just listening to them. And sometimes that's all people need. It's just someone to hear them out. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's rewarding because not only are you making them build their confidence, but you're also like letting them air out whatever's
Vent.
on their mind, and with no judgment either. So it's, even though I thought I was gonna do something, I'm still kind of am in that same, I'm still helping, but in a
Yeah.
different way.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, I never thought I was gonna have kids. I always thought I was gonna just like help a lot of people, but I met my husband really when I was really young, and like that changed everything. I thought I wasn't, never thought I was gonna get married, never thought I was gonna have children, but then I met him. We ended up having my daughter a few years after we got married, and then it took me a long time to have another baby because I had just opened up my business. Then I agreed to another. Agreed to try again. So now I have two kids. So my daughter is 11 and my son is 6, and they both go to school in Pasco too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like how you mentioned that you let people vent to you too, and like unintentionally, the hair industry um, helped you reach your goal of like helping
Yeah, it
people.
really did. It really did. It even helps me. It's crazy because when you become a business owner, you don't realize how much you help people until you like step back a little. And for
Right.
when you're a business owner, you have to really have like you have to have like really good intentions to helping people and be like a really good mentor and be very open to it, because they're gonna ask stylists that work for you are gonna ask you a lot of questions, and you can't be upset when you're like, you can't be upset when they ask you something. You're like, what? And then you just have to be like, okay, let me step back and like try to help them any way I can. So even though I help people in my chair, I'm also helping stylists try to reach their goals as a hairstylist, whether it's like them just becoming self-employed in my salon, or even them moving out of my salon and opening up their own business. So
Nice.
it's fun. I didn't realize how much. I guess I didn't really realize how much leadership was going to be into opening up a business, and
Right.
from like a stylist point of view and a business owner.
Of
So it's pretty
course.
cool.
Yeah. How do you better prepare yourself as like a leader, or What does that kind of look like for you?
Uh, let's prepare myself. Honestly, when I think of like like any kind of like leadership role, I think people forget that one, it comes naturally, right? So a lot of people who are leaders are natural born leaders, whether it's because they were like the oldest sibling or whatever the reason is. For me, as a leader, I don't ever like to say that I am or feel that I am. I feel like sometimes it's really just a title. I feel like when you're an actual leader, you kind of are, you have to be like more relatable to people. And I think that's what people forget is that sometimes that you have to be able to like relate to people, and then that way you can actually help them. Because if you kind of just use that title and feel like you're a leader, the boss, and whatever that is, I feel like you can forget why you're there. What's the reason why you're there? And if you're not able to relate to people, or that you can't really help them. So, for example, like in my salon, you'll see me. I dress just like everybody else in the salon. I take appointments just like everyone else. I try to relate to them as much as possible because you can't lead anybody if you don't have the experiences. So
Nice.
making sure that I have all the experience that I can get from doing hair or even teaching or helping people, I feel like you have to be able to relate to them. And I think people forget that sometimes that's just a title. Even being a business owner just be a title. But I think to be like a really good leader, you have to be able to see eye to eye to people. You can't be above them, or you have to be with them. So in my salon, you'll never hear me say they work for me. You'll always hear me say I work with them, because I want them to know that I'm going to be here for them and I'm going to relate to them, and we're going to have more in common than what they actually think. Even if I do have more responsibilities, I think people need to realize that sometimes the leader is going to have a lot of experiences and it's going to be able to help you, but just you have to it's just more, you have to make sure that you can relate to your stylist, or even to the people that sit in your chair. Sometimes they don't realize that you can be like, I'm a business owner, right? Everybody thinks I have everything put together, that I have my whole life put together, that I have a good work balance. I really don't, right? But for me, it's like, let me tell you my experiences as this person, like as a stylist, as a mom, or whatever the question is that they might ask me, because that's what happens. They'll ask you questions, and then that's kind of when you have to step in. But I always try to make sure I can relate to everyone, because experience is really important. I feel like that's what becomes a leader, is your experience, and then all your learning experiences, whether it's failure, good accomplishments. That's what I think determines a leader, is how they kind of handle those situations.
Of course.
So
I like that you try to relate to them too,
yes,
because one day you were in their spot trying to learn.
exactly. So how
And
am I
so
supposed to help
yeah,
someone
there you go.
if I don't have the same experiences they do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Relatability and vulnerability, talking about your experiences, how you started, is really how people kind of can see you eye to eye too.
Yes, and I
when
think
you,
that's so important.
yeah,
I don't want anybody to think I'm above them. I want them
yeah,
to know that I'm just like them. I dress just like you. I
yeah,
talk like you. I take appointments like you. I want to make sure that they know that I'm just like them.
nice.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the hair industry?
Okay, so when I was really young, so I come from a family of hairstylists, right? My mom used to be a salon owner too. She's still doing hair.
Really?
She loves it, and I like telling her story too, because I think she was actually like my mentor. But she's a hairstylist. I have aunts that are hairstylists. I even have cousins that are hairstylists.
Nice.
And so when I was young, I always told myself, I'm never doing hair. I never want to be a salon owner. I never want to be in a salon. Reason for that is because when I was a kid, my mom used to make me go to work in the salon, and I used to have to fold towels, clean up. So I was like, I don't ever want to do this. Like, this is not what I want to do. But then after high school, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. I thought I wanted to join the military, because I was when I graduated, it was like in 2006, and everybody was like joining the military because that's what everybody was doing. And I thought that that's how I could pay for my college at the time.
Yeah.
My mom was really, really against it, and so, or she was just, I don't know, afraid, I guess, not really like against it. She's just more afraid for me.
Yeah.
So then I took a step back, and I kind of worked for a year, took a break from school to figure out what I wanted to do. And the thing I always did like doing when I was a kid is cutting hair. And so I came to my mom, was like, hey, I think I want to go to barber school. And she was like, barber school? If you're going to school, I'm sending you to cosmetology school. You're going to learn everything. So I was like, well, I just want to cut hair. She's like, I don't care. You're going to go to cosmetology school then. So I was like, okay. So then I signed up, and my intentions were just to style hair and cut hair. That's it. I love doing, since I was a little girl, I remember cutting all my cousins' hair and telling them, like, I think you have split ends. Let me cut it. So from barbering school, I went to cosmetology school, and I'm so happy my mom forced me to do that, because once I started getting into hair color, it changed for me completely. I finally, like, I started enjoying it, and then when I finally got into the salon, I was able to, like, shadow her and then really get into, like, the fun part of being a hairstylist, which is the creativity part. And don't get me wrong, barbering is very creative, but
Yeah.
coloring is always like you don't know what to expect.
It's a different factor.
Yes, it's different, right? So I was like, okay. And then after that, of doing this for like 7 years, working with my mom as a self-employed stylist. One day I was like, you know what, I'm getting kind of busy. Let me change my sole proprietor to a LLC. And so I did that. And at that same time, my mom came up to me and was like, hey, I think I want to retire. I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, okay. I was like, let me go look for another salon to work for, you know? So I went home that night and I was thinking about it, like, work for another salon, give my money to someone else when I can pay my own rent.
Yeah.
You know, let me put my own money into my own business.
Yeah.
So I kept thinking about it, and I talked to my husband. I was like, what do you think? Like, I showed him the numbers, and I had already, like, did the numbers in the past, like, where I would write things down, how much it would cost me, or cost for, like, the expenses and stuff. And so then I went back to my mom, was like, well, what if I took over your lease? And I go talk to Dawn, which was our landlord at the time, if I can take over your lease and get it remodeled and change the name.
Yeah.
I already got my LLC right at the perfect timing. And she was like, yeah, let's go see. And I had a meeting with him, and it kind of fell into my lap. And at first I was a little offended because he was like, well, you're really young. And I was like, but I've been helping my mom since I was 21, so it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm the one that drops your check off.
Exactly.
So he was like, he was a family friend of ours too from church. And so he was like, okay, yeah, let's see, let's try it out. And I was like, if you give me 2 weeks, can you please tear all these walls down? I really wanted to change the culture in my salon. When my mom had the salon, it was they had a lot of walls put up to give space for the stylist for more privacy.
Right.
But for me, when I walk into a salon, I want everybody to be communicating, all the stylists, all the clients to be chit-chatting. I wanted us to be like a team. And in my mom's environment, it was more self-employed, like privacy. You wanted to do your own thing. Nobody talked to each other. Everybody just came in and left. Nobody helped each other. And that was kind of something that always bothered me, which actually is crazy. The crazy part is that is totally normal. That was totally normal like 10 years ago.
Right.
And now it's different. And our industry has changed so much, and it's pretty cool to see the difference now. But that was my first intentions, and this was like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I honestly don't know how long I've owned my business, but I was like, let me tear all these walls down. I'm gonna hire. I don't want a big salon. I want a small salon, but enough people to pay my rent, and enough for us to like communicate and do things together as a team. So I ended up with 6 stations at first, and by the time I knew it, after 3 years after COVID, I had outgrown my salon, my first salon. I went from
Nice.
6 stations to 10 stations, and then from 10 stations to 12 stations in my new salon, and from 12 stations to my new salon and 2 rooms. So I went from 6 of us to 15 people in my salon. I doubled it. I doubled it, right? And so this kind of like I said, it fell in my lap. But as I kept going, I realized how much I really enjoyed helping even the stylists grow,
Yep.
and not just helping I always say my first job is always a hairstylist. I love
Right.
my job, but I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy being like a mentor to other stylists.
Yep.
And now as a salon owner, I have like assistant programs where they come in with me as an assistant straight out of beauty school, have no experience, and they work for me on the daily. And the goal is for them to help me out, and while they're helping me keep my schedule, like be on top of my schedule, make sure it's on time, making sure my stuff is clean, I'm also teaching them at the same time, like, why do I mix this color? Why do I do this? And why do I do that? And I always really encourage them to ask me a lot of questions. And I tell them to, like, I'm an open book. I will answer anything. And from coloring all the way down to like business questions, because I feel like if they're going to be an assistant for me, I really want them to grow. And again, like, even if they have to leave me one day, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I just really want them to get anything out of me that they can, that's going to help them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just fell into my lap, and I just didn't realize that I love doing hair as much as I didn't realize it when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I'm like, I love cutting hair and styling. Why didn't it click? But I feel like when you're a kid, you're kind of like really rebellious and don't want to listen to your parents.
Yeah.
And that was me. I was like, I don't want to be like my mom, but I'm so much like her. It's just the funniest thing. And as I get older, I keep turning into her more. Like I'm more like even looking like her and everything. But yeah, I just fell into my lap, and I really liked I really liked mentoring a lot.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's something that Abel and I talked about too. Is like, man, the more that I didn't want to be like my dad when I was younger, the older that I get, is like I'm turning into him, and that's true. It's like I feel like that too.
and I don't know why we're like that. I
Yeah.
mean, my mom is such a great person. My mom's very. I just really am like really proud of my mom. My mom was a really young mom, and I think that's probably why I always feel like I was rebellious, because my mom had me very young, and we were. I feel like we were growing up together, you know, because she was so young and I was so young, and I feel like we grew up together. So I was just always, we fought like sisters.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and I see where she was coming from, as now that I'm a mother, I'm like very proud of her. I feel like she's accomplished a lot of things, and she set a really good example for myself and now I'm here, and I feel like it's because of her. She gave me a lot of like advice when I was first starting out, and making sure that I was taking care of myself, making sure I was taking care of my personal time, making sure that I was just really good to my clients. And so she was just such a great role model, and she still works with me, which is awesome, because she's doing the same thing for these other girls in the salon without realizing it. She's like one of the best leaders I have ever met, and she doesn't even know that she does it, because it's just so natural to her too.
100%.
Yeah, and it's
100%.
fun to have her in the salon. She's the oldest in my salon with the most experience. I think the most experience, yeah. And she keeps up with trends. She still does education, and I love it, because the girls that are just been there for a year, sometimes they think that the older stylist can be a little mean, but if the older stylist is very up to date with things and like keep learning, they're actually very nice and helpful. And she's one of those that like to help my younger girls that are just starting out. So it's great. I'm so happy that she like pushed me to go into beauty school.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
She does it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm like, Mom, you said you were going to retire 10 years ago. What's going on? But she still works with me.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good that she's still in that environment.
Yeah.
And like you said, keeping up with trends too.
Yeah. Yes.
Seeing what's new.
Yes.
And in the beginning, what did your like faith look like? Did you have any doubts? Like when you first started like the business taking over, what did that look like?
Well, one, I'm actually okay with failure. I know people are like scared of failing, but I always think that it's like a really good learning experience. So when I first started, I was like, well, hey, if this doesn't work out, that's fine. I can either sell the salon, or I could have someone take over my lease, whatever it is. At least I tried.
Right.
But let me try it. And before I even hired anybody to work in the salon, I remember thinking like, can I afford to pay this rent by myself? Because the biggest problem with salon owners is that they can't pay the rent, besides the other stuff, like overhead stuff. So the rent is like their biggest cost. And so before I went into the business, I said, can I pay this rent by myself? And if I can't, am I going to be willing to go back to what I used to do, which is self-employment, and be by myself and work only for myself? And so I was like, yeah, if it's okay if it doesn't work out, at least I tried. And so when I first did my lease, I even did it for only 3 years just to be safe, because I was like, what if it doesn't work out?
Right.
Then I know that I won't be tied down to a contract.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like my thought. And I think too, a lot of times when people open businesses, they put all their money into their business, and sometimes they put a little too much money into their business where they can put themselves into debt.
Yeah.
And I did not do that either. So I think that's also why my mentality was a little bit different, a little bit more positive going into it, even though I knew that there might be a setback if it didn't work out, kind of situation.
Yeah.
But when I first started, I was like, okay, well, thankfully I was able to take over my mom, buy her out, and take her over her stuff and have all the things that she already had. But it was a very old salon, so I had to actually replace a lot of things. And so before I completely took over the lease, I made sure to buy all of my equipment before and just store it and just save everything that I needed. And as
There
I
you
went
go.
by, like anytime I had extra money from my the way this works in our industry is that we get rent from stylists. They
Yeah.
all are booth rental, right?
Yeah.
So we get money from them. So every time I had extra money, I would save it and then replace something else. So I never like put all of my money into my business. I did it a little at a time, knowing that it wasn't my dream salon, but it was gonna be it was gonna look like it soon.
Yeah.
Whether it was in 3 months to a year, I was fine with that. I just went into thinking that way instead of like, well, if it doesn't look perfect, then it's not gonna be what I want. It's not gonna be, it's gonna fail. I wasn't like that. I was in there like, I'm gonna try to do this, and if I have to do it slow, I'm okay. Like I don't have to rush as long as I get started. That's the goal, is just get started. And so I always kind of was like positive about whatever situation it was. And I remember when I had finally was like, okay, I'm doing this. I remember even before I took over, I had to tell the girls like, hey, my mom's ready to retire, and I'm going to take over. And one of the things you have to think of as a stylist or a business owner is who's staying, who's leaving, who's staying, who's leaving, who has faith in me, who doesn't.
Right.
And so my thought was when I first started, as long as I have my own rent money that I was going to put into the salon and a couple other people's, I'm going to be fine. And so I was prepared for everybody to like leave. And a couple of girls did leave, and that was okay. But for the majority, I think the whole salon were really excited for me to take over because they had already seen how much I put into the salon for my mom. And so I think that was a big help, that I knew I had like really good support system from the stylist and from
That's
my family.
so good. Yeah.
And I don't and I will always appreciate my family, because when I tell you I had a great support system, and that's why I had so much faith in my business, was because when I remodeled my first salon, my uncle, my aunt, my friends, my mom, my stepdad, my dad, like the girls from the salon, they all came by to see what they could help with because they knew I only had 2 weeks to remodel it. And so I was like, this, quick, let's go. Like I would wake up at 5 in the morning, go straight to the salon, fix whatever I had to do, and I would go home by like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I was there from like early morning to night. I would even wake up early just to get to Lowe's to pick up whatever tools or whatever supplies I needed just to go remodel. And so, but because I had a great support system, I feel like I always felt like my salon was going to be fine. And if it didn't, it was okay too. It wasn't not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that you were so intentional about buying piece by piece and kind of just putting the puzzle together, but
Exactly.
one piece at a time, instead of like trying to put the puzzle and then this is how it's gonna work. Like sometimes it's better to just go piece by piece, right?
Yeah, I agree, because I've met so many people that want to open up a business, and the biggest thing is like, well, this is how much it's going to cost me to open up. I'm like, but why is it going to cost you that much?
Exactly.
So why can't you start off with this first? Or why can't, and I think in some people will, and this is kind of how you know who's a really natural born leader, because some of them will listen and some of them will be very offended that you say that. And a natural born leader, or someone who's a great leader or mentor, will listen because they have to take advice from people, right? And you're going to be hearing a lot of like opinions from different people, from your people in your chair, people that work with you, outside people, your family. And so I think that's kind of how you can tell who's going to be a great leader, is someone who's going to be listening, who listens.
Exactly.
But I think that's where people struggle, is they want to put everything in, and they'll get in debt. And it's so hard to get out of debt. And like I've heard salon owners like take out a second mortgage just to pay for to open up their salon. But I'm like, just save your money. I'm like a really big, I think a lot of times I try to think about like my finances all the time as a salon owner. And that's kind of like my first thought. Like, I never want to be in debt from a business, because it's like my passion, right? I love doing hair. I love everything about it, but I don't want it to tie me down, where I feel like I don't have no freedom. So that's why I kind of like save a little at a time and then buy a little at a time.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to also have that mentality, like you said, of like the more you know, there's also you tap into the more that you don't know.
Yes.
And so, like, when you have that ear to listen from your mentors or people around you that can help you out, because when you like close yourself down and you're like, oh, look at all the things that I know,
Yes, exactly.
but let me tell you how much things you don't.
Exactly.
And so then you have that ear and you're listening and you're growing with that. And that's good that you mentioned that. That's a real leader.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I mean, yes, I think so. And I love. It's funny because the cool thing about being a hairstylist is you're listening to your clients all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of different type of people in my chair. They sit in my chair, different clients, right? And I love listening to them because they all have different professions, all of them.
Right.
I've had
Yeah.
clients that are also business owners, and those
Yep.
are my favorite ones because we can relate.
Mm-hmm.
I have clients that are attorneys, so they teach me a lot of little things about like laws for my business. I have clients that work for LNI. I have
Ooh.
clients that are nurses, so if something is like, if I feel kind of sick, they ask me questions, you know, and then I'm like, okay, and then I learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I love listening to them because I feel like I'm learning as I'm going every single day, and
Yeah.
and I think that's what I like doing is listening to different people, and I love the clients that teach me so much because I'm surrounding myself by people that are gonna help me better myself too, and it's just really cool being in that behind the chair and not
Yeah.
sitting in the chair. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
I have a lot of questions for those LNI people.
Oh, my clients that sit in my chair, I'm like, okay, so who do I call? And they're like, let me send you the email. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
great, thanks. Yeah,
No, it's good
they're helpful.
to know people in different industries. It's good to know people that are business owners that can relate to people
Yes.
like yourself. It's good to have those conversations and just be curious overall.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
ask
Just
them
keep learning.
questions. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
And
from
like
people's experiences.
hearing people's experiences, hearing where they came from, where they want to go. It's cool.
Yeah.
And you can see that over time. Next time you have like a customer or a client, their plans from before are kind of coming into fruition, and that's beautiful to see too.
Oh yeah, that's like
Yeah.
yeah. I think when you're a salon or when you're a stylist and you work behind the chair and people are telling you stories, like every time they come in, you're like excited to hear what happened
Yeah.
next.
Exactly.
Whether it's them like opening up their business finally, or they finally got that job they wanted, or even like having a family.
Yeah.
Like my favorite, I'll cry if I find out someone's pregnant. Like I'm so excited for them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Business is a very big, like a lot of people try to separate like relationship with business, or like what do they always try to separate? Like the personal.
Oh yeah.
Personal with business. It's like business is super personal.
Yeah.
You know? It
Yeah,
is.
you're right. I'm always
Like-
like it's such a because when you own a business, people forget that we are passionate about what we're doing and why that's why we open up the business, right?
Right.
I love doing hair. I love helping people, so that's why I opened up that business. And it can be very personal, and sometimes
Yeah.
you have to like when you're trying not to take things too personal, you have to like step back
Yeah.
and then like walk away from like the situation and then remember, okay, now it's time to be a business owner. But you have to learn to separate it, but they do collide quite a bit without you
Yeah.
realizing, just because you're, like I said, I'm so passionate. So sometimes it can be a little frustrating
Yeah.
because you're like, why, you know, like, why are they doing that? Or why am I struggling like this or whatever? Because you take it so personal because it's your passion. And that's why you opened up your business. So they do collide, but you just have to learn to like step back, I think.
Yeah. Well, we also like develop the ear and the discernment to take only the good.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that are gonna walk into your life or into your business and they're gonna try to give you bad advice. And so when you are able to like decide is this good advice or bad advice, that's where you can grow as well too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know for me personally, like there is people that I did hire that were giving me bad advice.
Oh,
you know,
that's a-
and
that's a
at the
big-
beginning,
happens.
especially, and I was like only 22 years old,
Yeah.
and so like I was like still learning, and I took some bad advice. Luckily, like I learned from that, and then I learned what actual good advice is, and good advice is the most simple things that you don't think about that if you implement into your everyday life,
Oh,
they can impact you. So being positive, saying work is a blessing, saying that, truly believing that in your brain,
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing. Work is a blessing.
Yeah, people
right?
don't understand how lucky they
Yeah.
like stylists don't understand how lucky they are when they're so tired from being busy. Because
Yeah.
that means your chair is always full.
Yeah.
And that's a big blessing. Like being
Super.
able
Yeah.
to take every client possible in your chair is such a and being exhausted from it,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a true blessing. And I think people forget that yeah, they're in our chair and maybe they might be a little bit demanding, but they don't need to sit in your chair. And
Mm-hmm.
so you need to be
That's true.
more grateful that and appreciative of your clients, because even though they can be hard on you sometimes, they're still coming to see you every 2 to 3 months, and they're sitting back here with you, and
Right.
they don't have to. So we, as a salon owner, as a stylist, I feel like we need to appreciate that more often and not be so upset when someone's giving us a hard time. Maybe they're giving us a hard time for something that doesn't even involve us. Like maybe
Exactly.
they just need to let something out. So like I said, step back, don't take things personal, and let them talk to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all they need, and then the appointment will change, and they will be
Exactly.
less demanding. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a blessing to be busy. And you're right. I always like the way how you say like how you want to be positive all the time. That's like my biggest. I have in my I'm not even joking, in my lease agreement it says if you're having a bad day, go back home. And the reason why I say that is because if you're having a bad day, maybe you need to take a personal time and take and just to see what like, to help yourself. And so in my lease agreement it says if you're having like a basically saying, I don't remember how I worded it, but if you're having a bad day, you need to go home. You should go home.
Yeah.
Whether if you're feeling sick, if you're feeling down. So I don't feel like it's fair for other people for someone to come into the salon negative, because everybody should be in a positive, have a positive attitude.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really like take pride in my salon,
Mm-hmm.
is that I always get told my environment is very positive and welcoming, and I like take that to heart, because it gives me so much joy to hear that, because I have different people coming in, different people's lives and like their cultures, everything. So everyone comes in and they're not the same people, right? And so when they all come in and feel welcome, that is like such it's a joy to hear that. Like your salon's so welcoming, and I just feel so comfortable coming in here, and I really embrace that, and I just love it. So in my lease agreement, I say if you're having a bad day, you can go home, because I want you to feel better. I don't want you
Yeah,
to
exactly.
feel upset being here at work. I want you to go home, see what's like, correct yourself, see what you need, whether it's like health or mental, whatever it is, physical, whatever it is, go home. Then you need a day to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, my girls already know that work for me, that if they're feeling a little down, they'll just take it like a self-care day.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. And I think it's like, as a business owner, we need to, or any kind of management, I think we need to like really push that, because
Yes.
sometimes people are just so overwhelmed, and if they're so overwhelmed and they come into work like that, it can really affect other people, right? It's
Yeah.
like that bad apple effect, right? Where put a bad apple and then the other rest
Exactly.
go rotten, right? It's the same thing in the salon. You can't have someone coming in negative, because it can change the entire environment in the salon.
Exactly.
And you don't want the clients to feel that way.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I agree with that. One bad apple can ruin.
Yeah, it's true.
It has happened before. I mean, in my businesses and other businesses, and then so like, what do you do about it? Like, are you gonna change, or are you going to have to be let go?
Exactly.
You know, and so sometimes you have to make that decision if it's constant and they're affecting other people that can do better than that, have a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always a person that thinks like, if you could change your mind, then slowly, if you change your mind, it can change your heart.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like positivity and goodness, like it comes from God, obviously, but it can be directed towards our heart and then to our mind, and then we could speak it out. And we
Yeah.
could like show those vibes. Every time you walk in a room, you see a positive person, they have like a different vibe to them. Like they're like
they
super
can change
supportive
everything.
and stuff like
yeah.
that. And so like that's what I've been advocating to like people that are new hires in my shop, is like, first things first, I want to plant that seed of like, we are always positive here.
Mm-hmm.
And we always want to encourage you to ask questions.
Yeah.
If you have any doubts like about anything, just ask. And then we are super willing to teach you. And like you said, if they don't want to stay there, it's okay. They could take their skills somewhere else. Where
Yeah.
whatever you learn, it's okay. Like nobody's gonna hold that against you.
Yeah.
But we're uh, super encouraging towards like positivity. That's
Oh,
number
yeah.
one, 100%.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I always think like people always ask me like, why are you so positive? Like, why are you always positive about things? And I'm like, I've been in situations where I've had a lot of things happen to me where I'm like kind of doubtful of like life and everything, or like, why did this happen to me? Or whatever the situation is. And I'm always like, well, you really have to be positive like all the time if you want to see like improvement in yourself. You want to see all these changes in your life with people too. So like one of the things I like to do a lot is like I try to surround myself by good leaders. So like I said, I love being around business owners because business owners understand each other the most, right? We
Right.
all have the same mentality. We all have that drive. Sometimes we don't know how to stop and we just or just keep going,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
And so like it's really nice to be around those kind of people, like just being positive, like making sure that, you know, whether you're reading a book or listening to one, like staying positive in that way, like self-improvement books. But one of the things I realized a lot too is social media. Is like why are you watching, like people are like, we don't like social media, but I'm like, why? What are you consuming that's is so negative? What are you watching?
Yeah.
I'm not the best on social media, I don't think, but what I'm consuming is different. It's not going to be things that are not helpful towards me, right? It's always going to be something positive, usually something positive, or even financial, like people that are like in finances, because I want to make sure that I'm doing things correct. I'm always want to make sure that I'm positive towards people. I don't ever want to feel down where I'm like gonna affect other people. So like that's another thing too. Is like, what are you consuming every day?
I love that you bring that up too, because social media was originally intended to connect people
Yes.
with people that you probably wouldn't have connected before. And then all of a sudden, like businesses are posting, and like social media can really speed up the process for businesses or, influencers, whatever it may be. But like its sole purpose, like the reason that it was created was to
To
help,
connect
to
and to
connect.
connect. Yeah.
That's what it was for. And so like what you're connecting with is kind of your choice. So like
Exactly.
if you don't
What
like
it's
social
your
media,
algorithm that you created. So why
exactly.
is it like that?
Yeah.
So you need to change what you're watching every single day and
Yeah.
really look at what you're consuming because
Exactly.
it's important. I feel like, and every morning, every morning I go to the gym, right? I go to at least for like 30 minutes
That's good.
4 times a week, just to kind of like gather my thoughts. Every morning I do that, and sometimes I'll just be lazy, I'll just start swiping, and then something positive comes on my feed, and I'm like, oh, get up, Kyra, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, and so that's
There
why I
you
always
go.
think like social media is actually a great tool,
Yeah.
but it depends on how you're using it.
Exactly.
So, and I think that could be a positive way.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I think people could really change their mind about that too if they were thinking that. Because I mean, we've all thought it too. It's like, oh man, like social media can be very negative too. It could be
Yes.
detrimental. It can get you comparing yourself to other people. But if instead you change your mind and you're like, well, actually, like in your industry, you can learn a lot on social media too, right? Especially somebody starting out. But in my industry as well, that's actually where I draw a lot of inspiration from too.
Yeah.
It's like you get to see like other designs of shops. You get to see other cuts of meat that you've never seen before, other styles of presenting things. And so it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So speaking of social media,
Yeah.
you know what's crazy about it is, when I had told you that there's like seasoned stylists, a lot of them don't like social media at all because it's always been like a negative. They've always seen the negative part of it. Because it started off with like Pinterest with people bringing in like photoshopped inspiration photos.
Oh, okay.
Continued education is really important, and the cool thing about our continued education as stylists is that a lot of educators will teach you social media. So
Really?
like they kind of like help you. They'll kind of help you on the positive side of it and how to gain clientele from it. And so it's kind of nice to see like social media help older stylists that are still trying to stay busy or whatever it is, or connect with other people. But that's the cool thing about continued education. They'll help you with a lot of little different things, whether it's social media, techniques, or even, learning about a brand, whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
cool. I love how social media helps people with their business too.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. It's funny because I met, when I first became like an educator, I met someone and I found like, I was like, okay, I'm going to message them on like Instagram and see if I can get some help from them.
Hmm.
And I was able to, like job shadow this like hairstylist, and this hairstylist helped me connect with like uh, someone else. And
There
that's
you
what I'm
go.
saying. It's so helpful. I was
Hmm.
able to get one connection from another connection, and if it wasn't for me reaching out to that person, who I had like admired their work a lot, they helped me connect with the brand that I work for now, which is awesome because I remember like looking for that educator that was like the lead educator of the brand I work for, which is, and I went up there and I was like, and I found him, and then I found him in real life, like in person, like we had a class or whatever, and like I remember going up to him like, um, "Hi, I'm Kyra. I'm from Eastern Washington. I
Hmm.
just want to know what I got to do to be an educator because my side of Washington State never has education."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Do I need to have like a big following?" And he was like, "Absolutely not. Let me give you my information." And like
That's so
that's kind of
cool.
how it started, and which is thankfully I messaged that girl and that guy, and they helped me over here, just like helped me get to a class that I needed to go to get to education, to teaching education. And I do that too now. I educate at least once a week, or maybe like 3 to 4 times a month now. And it was from social media. Like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't.
There you go.
Yeah, it's that connection. It's kind of cool.
That's a good example of a way that
Hmm.
if you use it for a positive thing,
Yeah.
it can be very fruitful.
Yeah, and let me tell you, like 6 years ago, I was not the type of girl to go up to someone.
Hmm.
I was, and that's why continued education is so important too, because I was I'm a shy girl. Like I don't,
Hmm.
I'm an introvert. I don't go looking for conversations. And so, but 6 years ago, something had happened to me where I was like, it was kind of like life changing, and I was like, I can't be scared of things no more, So I just kind of like got out of my comfort zone, and like I had just had my son. I think he was like 3 months old or 4 months old. No, he was 6 months. And I remember I wanted to go to this class, and I was like, well, nobody wants to go with me, so let me just go by myself. And like took off, met random people. I didn't know any of these people, but I was like, I just wanted to continue getting educated in my field and becoming like better at my craft, right? And so I was like, well, I'm gonna do it. I just want to better myself. And so I think that was like my first push, was like, let me go alone. And then I started doing things more by myself because nobody wanted to go. So I said, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I got out of that comfort zone and continued with doing continued education, because a lot of stylists work to get their license or go to school, get their license. And sometimes they forget that there's more education out there,
Yeah.
and they don't keep up with it. And I think uh, we can get stuck in the same habits, and we sometimes need to go take an extra class to kind of get out of those habits and create better ones too.
Exactly.
But yeah, if you would have talked to me 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I would have not taken off alone to go take a class by myself.
Hmm.
And but I feel like when you have that passion, you kind of just you go for it.
Exactly.
And then because of that, like those intentions of like learning, I feel like that helped me be a better stylist, a better salon owner. I've like, and I think that's why I kind of got into like educating too, was because I would see how they would help people, and I'm like, this is kind of nice. It's nice to see
Hmm.
that. And so that's kind of where I even started. I'm like, and that's when I was like, here goes a shy girl talking to these people, like, and I did it, and it was fine. I mean, what's the worst thing to say no? Like, you can go somewhere else and ask someone else to help you. Just keep
There
trying.
you go.
It's
Keep
not a big
trying.
deal. Like, as long as you tried, right?
There you go.
But yeah, that's kind of like, I think people forget that continued education is really important. And
Hmm.
even if no one wants to go with you, just go, because you're going to meet people that are like-minded like you.
Exactly.
And that's the cool thing, is that you go and sit with people that you don't know nothing about, and then you connect with them, and then they're like become your friends, because you're like, oh, we're so much alike. Obviously because we're doing the same thing, right? So we have the same
Exactly.
mentality.
Yeah.
And then you connect with them and become friends with them too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they probably went there alone too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of stylists don't realize this, because they always,
Yeah.
I think because we're in such a big group setting, they think that they all have to go together.
Hmm.
And you don't. Like, I've taken so many classes alone. I've stayed in hotels alone, just because I was like, I really want to go learn. I want to elevate, I want my craft to be better. I want it to be different from other people around me. So I always would, and I'm like, I'm going to go alone. It's fine. No big deal.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I think that's something that I need to work on too, is like being able to go somewhere by myself. I
Oh,
struggle with that too.
do you?
Yeah.
Do you have a big? Are you from a big family?
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah.
How many siblings do you have?
I have five
I
siblings.
have six younger sisters, and I
All
grew up.
sisters?
Yes, and I grew. There was five of
Wow.
us, six of us that grew up together, right? And then my
Uh-huh.
youngest sister, or no, five of us that grew up together, and then my youngest sister she's really little, but when I was really young, that was one of the most difficult things for me to do is to be alone because I had so many sisters with me at all times, and I just I didn't realize that um, until I had to stay in Spokane by myself, and that was like my very first time being alone ever. When I had my son, I had him really early, and so he was a micro preemie, so he was very premature, and I had to live alone in Spokane. My daughter and my husband were at home while I was taking care of my son in Spokane all alone, and that was like my very first time ever eating alone, shopping alone, like going anywhere alone. Right? I never had done that, and that's kind of where I was like, I can't be scared no more. Like I need
Yeah.
to get out of that. Like as much as I love being with my family and my sisters, like
Yeah.
I need to break that habit, and that's kind of where it started. And I think even though it was a very scary time for me with my son, it was like kind of a blessing in disguise because it helped me push myself to be more independent and not
Yeah.
so codependent on my family
There you
or
go.
my husband, because I was the same. I'm like, no, I'm not going without you. But
Hmm.
now I'm like, okay, I can do this by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They
But
opened that
it's
door.
hard when you have a big family. It's hard because
Yeah.
you guys are all together all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
They opened that door for sure. I remember like somebody invited me to like a meat convention kind of
Uh-huh.
thing, and I asked my dad, and he said he didn't have time to go, and so like I didn't end up going because I was like, oh man, like I have to go by myself. And so like I'm glad that you mentioned that you went and you did things by yourself. You went and met people by yourself. I need to do that more for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, and I feel like it's like I said, it's so scary at first. Like because I am a really shy person. Like, you'll
Hmm.
never see me going out to communicate to people and like conversate. Like, and now if I'm at a restaurant and someone's sitting right next to me, like I'll even start a conversation with them sometimes. And I was never like that, but now I am because like I said, we're people that when you go to these kind of like classes or any kind of convention, you're meeting people that are just like you, and it's so much more natural to talk to them because they have
Yeah.
the same mentality as you, and it's fun too, like kind of seeing like a different side of you.
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing, and I don't know, it just kind of like opens up a little bit, like opens up your mind a little bit, and like you kind of see things differently too.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like kind of balance your personal life with your business and your passion for hair?
I don't feel like there's a balance,
Mm-hmm.
but you can really be strict on your schedule.
Right.
I get that question a lot because I am a really busy person and I'm a mom of two.
Mm-hmm.
And but one thing I always tell my clients, and my clients know this from the get-go, is that my family comes first. If I have to change my schedule for my family, I'm doing it. And
That's
I'm really
good.
sorry, but you're gonna have to wait for me, or you're gonna have to go to someone else. And if you're mad at me, I apologize, but I will always put my family first.
That's good.
But I feel like the one thing that my mom taught me when I first started was, she told me, now that you're doing hair, I want you to be strict with your schedule. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, make sure you put down the hours that you work, and those are your hours. And I was kind of confused at first. And as I kept going, I started to realize that clients will say, well, I don't get off until this time, so you can't get me in at this time. And I'm like, no, I'm off at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of like a habit I had created. And every time a client, like even when a new stylist comes in, so tell me your schedule and we'll keep it like that. And it's like, that is probably the most important thing, like the best advice I had ever gotten, because when it's time to clock off, it's time to clock off, even if you're the business owner. And like I said, running a business is crazy because you'll be working at 12 o'clock at night and not even realizing it.
Yeah.
But working away from the chair is the most important thing, because I want to make sure I'm present with my family. I don't want to miss out on anything.
Exactly.
So my schedule's really strict, and my education schedule's really strict too. On my, I tell my boss I'm only teaching Sunday, Monday. If I have to, I'll go on a Sunday, just because I know I can have my kids tag along, and then we can come back home on Sunday night. Tuesdays I will do it if I have to, but it's not my priority. So I'm really strict, and you have to be like that with all of your schedules, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So Saturday and Sunday are my days with my kids and my husband, and that's it. Like, and I make sure to put that on my schedule. And the girls know too. Like, if someone's calling trying to get in to squeeze in, they're like, no, she's off that day. It's just really just setting your schedule, and that's that's kind of how I like separate both,
Yeah.
so they don't intertwine, or I'm not trying to answer phone while like I'm with my kids. And as a matter of fact, like I think a lot of stylists will give out their personal number, and I don't really give out my personal number. I used to when I was younger, and as I gotten older and had kids, I'm like, I can't. Like they're gonna keep texting me at random times, and so I completely like I got a whole nother number for just work, and it was so much easier to separate that, because now when you get home, that work number turns off, like it's on do not disturb, right? And so I think that makes it so much easier, so you can really just focus on what's going on at home versus outside of at your salon or whatever business you own.
Right.
And so that's kind of what's helped me, was being strict on my schedule, not giving out my personal information, and then I try not to give out too much of my personal, like my personal, anything too personal to my clients as well. Like I said, we're here for them.
Yeah.
So it's let them talk, and we can just listen. So they can ask you questions here and there, but we don't have to tell them everything, because it's our personal time. And that's kind of how I've always seen it. So strict schedule, and just let them talk.
There you go.
And you'll be fine.
And I feel like when you have a strict schedule, it allows you to be more productive.
Yes.
Right? Because then you're like, okay, well, I'm off at this time. I got to get this done before that time.
Exactly.
And work is work, and family's family. And so
And
you
I'm
could be
like-
more productive in both areas.
And I have, like, I don't know, people don't realize how important it is to have discipline, because, and like every morning I said, I wake up, go to the gym, come back home, take care of my kids, make sure they go to school. And then that's like as soon as I get to the work, that's when my like mind turns on to be a business owner. And when it's 5 o'clock, it's time to go home and be a mom.
Yeah.
And it just clicks. But like, that's why you have to have that strict schedule. And I think that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes clients can push those boundaries of like trying to stay in a little later, come in a little earlier, get you on your day off. And that's when I feel like stylists can kind of get upset.
Yes.
But if you can set those boundaries and let them know right away, like, this is my hours, like, and they'll respect it, and they'll understand. If they really want to stay with you, they'll make it work. Now, speaking of that, if you're a newer stylist, your schedule might like change a little.
Fluctuate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get all the clients you can to build your clientele. And once you build your clientele, you'll see who's going to be returning consistently and who's not. And the people that keep returning, they'll actually work with your schedule. So you'll see your schedule might be more available in the beginning, but once you have built your clientele, you can actually be a little bit more strict about when you come in, because your clients will work with you.
That makes
So
sense.
your first couple years are a little different, and I always tell girls, like, you have to be available and just make sure that you don't overwork yourself. So if you're staying a little later, like if you have to come in a little later the next day, I really suggest you do that so you can get some rest, or like just to kind of have like a good balance. But you will see your availability a bit more open when you're first starting, and as you build your clientele, you can be a little bit more strict, and your clients will be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense too. Like at the beginning, it is going to be a little bit more of a sacrifice. Just like any business, any job, you're going to have to stay those extra hours so you can learn,
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing that right now with education.
Yeah.
I don't get paid the best to educate, but the reason why I'm doing it is because I see it as like a sacrifice. Like if I'm going to school, I'm like, I'm doing all these classes so I can learn to like communicate with people, how to connect with people, because there's so much to do in our industry, and people don't have no idea. Like they don't realize that they can actually work in different types of fields. Like you don't have to be a business owner. You can do something else in the industry. Like my goal was always, once I retire, because I've been in this industry for 16 years, okay? And it's the closer I get to like 20, I'm like, okay, that means I have to start thinking of a different path. I can't see myself doing anything else, but I love doing hair. So what can I do that's in the same industry? And that's when education came in. It's because I was like, okay, if I can do education, learn to communicate, give out good presentations, maybe I can get a job for a brand, whether it's teaching full time, or if it's being a manager for a bunch of educators, what can I do to help me get to there? And that's what that sacrifice is right now. So that's why I said, if I have to do it a Tuesday, I'll do it. But if I have to go to teach a class on a Tuesday, I'll do it. But if not, I'm gonna stay home, you know. But it's the sacrifice to like a next stepping stone. And I'm already 36, almost 37, and I feel like people think that because you're at that age, you have to like stop and kind of like settle. But I don't think so. I feel like you can keep learning. And so that's what my sacrifice is right now, is I want to learn how to be a great presenter. So let me do this education. As time goes on, I'll get better at it, you know? And then I can see what's the next step for me once I retire doing hair. I mean, I don't think I'll retire completely, but once I'm like, because eventually our bodies get tired from doing hair, from the same movement, standing up all day, looking down. Our shoulders give up. People get carpal tunnel, and so I have to make sure that I'm prepared for when that time does come. What is it going to look like? Am I going to stop doing hair? Am I going to have to go look for a different career? Exactly. I can't see myself doing that, so let me get into education and see what brand I can work for in the future. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now with my sacrifice, with the time, with everything right now. So sometimes I have to stay away from my kids overnight, but they're understanding. And I always look at it this way too, is like when you're a mom, your kids kind of, they see you as a mom all the time, right? And like, it's like mom goes to work, mom does this, and that's it.
Yes.
And people think that because you're a mom, everything has to revolve around like your family, and then you kind of forget who you are. And that shouldn't be that way. We should keep taking care of ourselves in any kind of way we can. And my thought is like, my kids are seeing me do all of this, teaching, sacrificing, learning, keep learning, teaching classes, going to classes. They're seeing me do this, right? So my thought is like, my daughter's seeing me do this, and that means that she's gonna have a good role model, so that when her time comes to be a mom, that she won't lose herself either. And so that's kind of something that like I try to make sure as a salon owner, a mom, is like making sure I'm setting a good example for my kids and for my sisters too, because they're a lot younger than me. I'm the oldest, and so I want to make sure that they see that I'm doing all the stuff I love, but I'm still taking care of my family, and I'm still learning. I never stop learning. I never stop growing.
That's so good. Yeah, that's good that you realize how crucial it is to, obviously, to spend time with them, but also when you're away from them, what are you doing with that time too, as a role model? Because eventually, we all grow up and we really meet our parents for who they were and who they've been, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that in mind all the time, it's like you start to move like, okay, well, I need to discipline myself and I need to be a good role model, basically.
Yeah, I always that's what I always think of, like, what is my daughter going to remember? Because, she's a girl, so I have to make sure, like, that she knows that it's okay to keep learning. It's okay to go to school, even if you're still a mom or a wife. Like, these are things that you can still take care of yourself, and whatever it is, making sure that you're teaching them that. And that's like I think that's kind of why I got out of my comfort zone. My daughter's really shy too. And I was like, I can't show her I need to show her it's hard to live like that. So then I started doing all of this to like set an example. My daughter's still really shy and everything, and I can kind of get her out of her comfort zone sometimes. So I try to do fun things with her all the time. But that's like kind of like my thing is like, what can I do to show her that you can keep taking care of yourself and keep growing, even if you are older, like, because she thinks I'm so old. And so like, how can I help her realize, like, even if you're old, you can still keep learning?
100%.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good that you're open to learning from others and teaching others too. That truly shows how passionate you are too.
Yeah.
That you're willing to sacrifice your own time, which you don't have to
to
educate others in your industry. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you. I honestly feel like you're a really great role model as a whole for this community too.
Oh, thank you.
That you grew up here and that you have your business and you're a woman and you're successful. You have your kids. That's good.
Oh, thank you.